Good afternoon, everyone. I think the theme of my keynote address is probably going to be, why bother? Why should I bother? In-house lawyers are always really busy, so why should you make time for this? And in order to get to that, I want to give you a feel of the journey I've been on to get behind net zero, and then why I'm so keen to support lawyers for net zero and why I think they really add value and support you in this piece. So first of all, to kick off with my journey, if you'd asked me about a year ago about net zero, I would have had two answers for you. First one, too big a problem for me as an individual to make a real difference. Too many angles, too many aspects, and I haven't got time to think about it. And secondly, this is for others to work on. And believe me, at E.ON, an energy company which prides itself on providing customer solutions to lead our customers through the energy transition, there are plenty of other colleagues across our organisation working on the topic of net zero. So why bother, and what changed in my own mind? I think there were a couple of factors that linked into this. At the beginning of this year, everyone suddenly started talking about ESG. It's, for some reason, really come to my attention over the course of the beginning of the year. And as part of ESG, people have also been talking a lot about net zero, both internally and externally. Our new group-wide CEO announced that ESG was going to be his focus area and has set up a strategy team specifically to look at this across the group. And about the same time, it coincided with Adam contacting me and approaching me about the concept of lawyers for net zero. And that really got me thinking about how can we, as the in-house legal team, make a difference and make a real difference. And the more I discussed this with others, both internally and externally, I realized that we as internal lawyers can play a much more proactive part in this journey to net zero. And then I started discussing it with my team, and I was amazed how enthusiastic they got about it, about this whole topic, and how quickly they got enthusiastic about it. And it was really easy to get them behind the whole concept of net zero, because realistically, who doesn't want to play their part in saving the planet? And a couple of things, just to give you a couple of ideas for today's session. We set up a mini team of 4 in my team who were going to focus on ESG, but also net zero in particular. And we're currently running a few team-wide half-day sessions to discuss all the concepts of sustainability and net zero. And we have linked in colleagues from our supply chain, from our policy team, but also our external legal advisors as part of this. And the team really got behind these concepts, and just as feedback from the first session we had, we pulled together basically a short, medium and long-term plan of what we as the in-house team could do in order to push forward net zero. And some of the examples range from the quite simple steps and what you might consider to be quite small steps, but sometimes it's good to have some easy wins in the whole mix because it feels like you're making some progress. So some of the small steps we looked at is, let's ideally work with no printing. We sort of got used to this as part of the whole pandemic and having to work from home, but let's not go back to the old ways of printing a whole load of paper that we then end up throwing away very shortly afterwards. We moved to using electronic signing, again, mainly driven through the pandemic, and that really pushed our drive to it. Let's not go back to wet ink signatures if we can avoid it. Those are some of the smaller steps, but we also started thinking in bigger terms around, it made my team realize how important the horizon scanning was for us in this particular area. And I'll come on to mention some of the feedback from the Climate Change Committee that came out last week. But also looking at devising supplier questionnaires, but then linked to that, contract clauses that really bite in the contract and ensure that some of the promises that are made at the start of the tender process then do actually get followed through in the net zero context. So you're probably thinking, well, it's easy for her to get involved. She works for an energy company. They're all fully behind net zero. So what's new and what's different for me. My team's already been working on EV charging contracts, our smart meter rollout, solar facilities for customers. So what's different now than this time last year, for example? I think there's a renewed awareness of the whole net zero piece that I sense both internally and externally. And just to give you a couple of my internal quotes, and I am quite unashamedly stealing them from my colleagues, but our Chief Strategy Officer quoted, "Getting to net zero by 2050 is a once in a lifetime project." So would be nice to be part of a once in a lifetime project. And to quote our UK CEO, "This next decade until 2030 is critical to meet that target by 2050 in homes, businesses and cities." So these are all reasons for why I've decided to bother and really to take action. So now to second part of my address is, so why lawyers for net zero? Why do I think there's an advantage in lawyers for net zero? I think there's a couple of points here. I think the first one is around, I think in my view, in-house lawyers have got a really vital role to play. Net zero, as we all know, is part of ESG. ESG has also got that whole compliance and policy aspect that comes with it. And as General Counsel, in-house lawyers, you're already involved in things like Modern Slavery Act statements or other sustainability type statements that your local legislation will require, which may, for example, even be linked to environmental reporting that needs to already be taking place. So when you actually pull all of the things you do already together, there is actually quite a lot of involvement you've already got in that net zero space. And the UK Climate Change Committee reported back to Parliament last week and was really critical of the lack of progress in this space and called for more decisive action and more policy to be put in place in order to drive the net zero agenda. That should be linked to low carbon choices for customers and a funding strategy which supports this. So it's really clear that there's more to come in this space, and it's really important for in-house lawyers to be able to be ahead of the game and not just be reactive, but be able to advise on risks and opportunities as they're coming up. In my view, in-house lawyers are also ideally placed to initiate change and not just respond to what colleagues are asking from you. First of all, you know how your organization works. You can speak to colleagues at the most senior level, and any organization not currently thinking about net zero is going to be left behind. Staying on top of and ideally ahead of the game is really crucial to retaining customers, whether these are private customers, business customers, or in the public sector space. And you can play your part in your organization by asking the relevant questions. I'm coming back a little bit to Paul's concept of being the first mate, which I really liked. I like that analogy, and that's going to be one of my takeaways from today already. But you can ask the relevant questions, such as, every business should be looking at considering their own energy usage. Are you buying 100% renewable energy? Considering other forms of on-site generation or more carbon-friendly energy sources, such as solar or air source heat pumps. They can be especially effective if combined with some on-site storage. If you have a fleet, could the fleet go electric? You could consider sustainability audits, building management systems, which can also save on your energy usage. And linked to all of this, you can influence your supply chain. And by supply chain, I don't just mean your legal supply chain, so this is what you're asking from your external lawyers, but also your general supply chain that supports your business in achieving any type of sustainability or net zero targets that it wishes to achieve. So really, to conclude, I think my top 3 reasons for wanting to be part of Lawyers for Net Zero and being really supportive of Lawyers for Net Zero. The first one is, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by net zero, ESG, sustainability, you name it. There's so much terminology floating around. I probably get an email a day on something, a conference, a seminar, a webinar, any type of activity in this concept. And this group can really help with exchanging ideas and experiences and just help you work out what areas to focus on and which areas to prioritize, because they're going to be different for everyone, because all our businesses are different. Again, Paul's words rang in my mind around there are no easy wins in this space. It is a transition, it is a journey, it is a longer term piece. So this group can really help in keeping your focus going. I think the second point is, when I first, and you could tell, I only really started my journey on this at the beginning of the year. And it's really easy to think that you've missed the boat. Everybody else is further ahead than you. And, oh, everybody's talking about this, I'm not, so I've completely lost out. And I think Lawyers for Net Zero can really help, you getting up to speed really quickly, but also help you work out, well, which are the areas that are, what are other people talking about, thinking about? What has worked for others, what hasn't worked so well for others, and what do I want to try out? And I think the third point is, which I already said at the beginning, is we're all really busy people. I think this group helps you to get that focus, get that prioritization, and not every idea or every concept is right for everyone or necessarily appropriate for your business. I hope I've given you my reasons for getting involved, and that you can take some of that that might be relevant for you. But really, in summary, this is why I bother, and this is why I'm really excited about Lawyers for Net Zero. I'm really excited that we've got to the launch event today, because we have been talking about this for some time, and it's great to get to this first step. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of the session.